has an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation. Florida State's defense ranks 5th in points allowed. They go head-to-head in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, 11:30 Eastern New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take Podcast. Should LaShawn McCoy stop talking about Chip Kelly? Plus, is it fair to compare J.J. Watt to Lawrence Taylor? And is it too soon to push for a Ronda Rousey-Holly Holm rematch? That and so much more coming up on the pod.
I'm done.
Shady McCoy.
I'm done. I'm done with all this, man. I'm done.
No.
And you asked me, coach, you want to go back and coach? No, I don't want to coach this. Because this ain't professional football, man. It ain't about you. It's not about you anymore.
It's true.
The players think it's all about them.
Exactly, but that's the...
It ain't about them. It's about the game of football, man.
Let me ask you this then, Herm, because I've never seen you this passionate, and you are a passionate person. Is it possible, because of who is coaching the Buffalo Bills and the way he likes to coach and the way he likes to talk, that perhaps some of these players, a la Shady McCoy, who has these different platforms, feels empowered to say whatever it is he wants to say?
I don't know that so much. I just think that we give players passes because what we do for a living, media, we love this. This hurts me when I had to see players do this. It just hurts me. And I'm a part of the media.
What about it hurts you the most?
It hurts me that they put their own identity, their own egos in front of the team. Because this is a team game, man. It's always been that way. And it's about the guys in your locker room. It's about the guys not have to stand there and ask the question, you hear what Shady said about your coach? They ain't talking about football. They're talking about nonsense.
Well,
it ain't the game of football, Trey.
You know, I can't disagree with you.
If I didn't work here, I'd walk off this thing right now. Because I'm tired of talking about this mess about these players, man.
Herm is hype. We're going to react to that and get into it in just a minute. Good morning on this Friday Eve. Thanks so much for being with us here on First Take. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, both in house today. I'm Molly Karam. Gentlemen, good day.
Good, boss.
How are we doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Alrighty.
Guys, let's get into what we just heard from Herm. Very strong comments on NFL Live yesterday. Clearly not pleased by players talking out against coaches. Stephen A., what's your reaction to that sound we just heard?
I will preface my comments by saying Herm Edwards and I are very, very close. I love the man. I look up to him. We talk all the time. But I respectfully, yet emphatically disagree with his position on this matter as it pertains to LaShawn McCoy. Adrian Peterson, I agree. That wasn't the time and the place. DeMarco Murray, assuming he instigated a conversation, which Chip Kelly enlightened us and said, look, they sit in first class. They just happen to be sitting next to one another. So it may be much ado about nothing. DeMarco Murray, if indeed he instigated that type of conversation in the aftermath of a victory over New England, I get it. And I can understand how that would frustrate Herm Edwards. But as it pertains to LaShawn McCoy, not only do I disagree with Herm Edwards, and I'm looking forward to him sitting right here, I was incredibly disappointed with his position. Everybody's not the same. People inhale things differently. I don't recall anything about LaShawn McCoy or what he has had to say that has been anti-team. He has allowed his personal feelings. Last time I checked, he's showing up to practice. Last time I checked, he's going to show up to the game on Sunday. Last time I checked, he's having a relatively productive season for the Buffalo Bills. Okay, he raves about Rex Ryan. I don't recall him talking against his coach. He's talking against his former coach because of personal feelings. Now, let me say this to Herm Edwards specifically. Herm Edwards has a different kind of personality than most coaches. I think all of us would say that. We'd admit to that. I find Coach Herm Edwards to be a man of extremely high and impeccable integrity.
Yes.
If somebody were to offend him personally, I don't know how he would react. I do believe that he would handle it in a manner where it doesn't come across as about me as opposed to team or at the expense of a team. I would never assume that Herm Edwards would ever put himself above a team. That's not his makeup. That's not who he is, which is why he articulated his thoughts the way that he did, because it's not in his fabric to be that kind of individual. But what I would challenge him on is that feeling in a negative fashion about a particular coach that you've had to personal experiences with, how is that anti-team? LaShawn McCoy does not play for the Philadelphia Eagles any longer. He does not like Chip Kelly. I think that's clearly obvious. I think it's also clearly obvious that when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, the manner in which he was treated was something that he took personal, and it personally affronted and offended him. Now, we don't need to revisit all of that. We know where I stand. I'm the one that reported on it, and everybody accused me of making stuff up. And then numerous players, not just LaShawn McCoy, came out and co-signed it. And I don't want to hear about the players inside the Eagles locker room. What the hell are they supposed to say playing for somebody like Chip Kelly at this particular moment in time? Call me when they leave the team, and they have to talk about stories that involve Chip Kelly. And by the way, don't threaten to excoriate them or vilify them in the public forum, the media and beyond. Literally ask and fully embrace what they tell you, devoid of ramifications or repercussions, and let's see what level of truth they really give you about their experiences with this man. The fact that LaShawn McCoy spoke out about it and said, I'm not going to shake his hand. Look, if it were me, would I be that way? No. There are former bosses and former people that I work with I can't stand. I'd still shake their hand if they accept, because I move beyond. I'm a grown man. You move beyond it. You let it go. But the flip side to it is that LaShawn McCoy has the right to feel otherwise if he believes it's about the way he was treated. I don't recall LaShawn McCoy literally confining his comments to the fact that he got traded to Buffalo for Kiko Alonso. He spoke about things and other experiences that he had that led up to his departure. I don't know how Herm Edwards or anybody else can ignore that reality. So I get where Coach is coming from. I understand his frustration because on far too many occasions, it does appear to be about the players. But I'd also like Coach to keep in mind the fact that this is the National Football League, who promotes the handful of people they want to promote. And outside of that, you are on your own. This ain't the NBA where you have guaranteed contracts, for years and years and years. You sign a $40 million deal, you sign a $60 million deal, or whatever the case may be. It may not be there for you to get cut the next year. You understand? You can sign the bonuses guaranteed, but a lot of those dollars are not guaranteed. So guys bringing attention to themselves, and Herm Edwards being so offended about that. Are you offended about the NFL and how they go about handling their business? Because they're making billions. And they will say, by the way, Skip Bayless, last point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, because you would knowing the NFL the way that you do, along with you, Skip. Please refresh my memory. The NFL signed a 10-year deal that's projected to be in excess of $180 billion over the lifetime of its deal. Isn't this the same league that was willing to charge somebody to perform at the Super Bowl? Am I really? I think I remember that. So you can do whatever you can to exploit your brand and make money. But a player bringing attention to himself is so taboo. And I think that Herm Edwards, in my opinion, humbly, respectfully, because I love that man, I think Herm Edwards, as a former coach in the NFL, gets caught up in how things should be when it comes to the players. And the players would retort by saying, well, how should things be for everybody? Because it seems like everybody's allowed to do what they can do for themselves, but the second a player does it, it's a problem, and it's not about team, and I'm tired of this, and we got to do something about it. That's nonsense, because the league showed themselves. The folks up top set the example for others to follow.
Okay.
If you are all about making your money and bringing attention to your brand, I can't fault the players for doing the same.
Do you think LaShawn is trying to bring attention to his brand this week?
No, but what I'm saying is that when Herm Edwards makes the comment that it's about the players being all about themselves, I'm saying that. In the case of LaShawn McCoy, he clearly has personal animosity towards Chip Kelly, no matter what he tries to explain. I'm saying he has the right to feel that way if this man has offended him. He doesn't work for the man anymore. He's not a part of the Eagles. If he doesn't want to shake his hand and he want to tell the world he ain't going to shake his hand, so what?
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Back to Herm Edwards. I'm also very close to Herm.
Yep.
Have dinner with him occasionally.
Yep.
Love the man.
Good man.
I want to remind you where he came from. I want to remind you he did not get drafted by any team in this league. As an undrafted free agent, he went to camp with the Philadelphia Eagles. You'd have to call it 1,000,000 to 1 shot to even make the team. And he didn't just make it. He started and became one of the top cornerbacks in the National Football League. Played in a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep.
Then he started at the bottom of the coaching tree, and he paid his dues all the way up the ladder the right way. He did it the right way and became a very good head coach in this league, as you both remember, with the Jets in Kansas City. And now he's a very good analyst on this network. Okay, just remember where he came from. He is old school. He did it the hardest way possible, both ways, playing and coaching. And this is where I agree with him all the way to his soul. I tell you this all the time. Football, much beyond basketball or certainly baseball, is a team game. It is a we game. The we's win. The me's don't win in football very often. Maybe occasionally the me gets so good that a me can overcome the we, but it doesn't happen very often. Why have the Patriots been so successful? They are straight we. And it starts at the top with the head coach, who is beyond question. Does anybody ever question Bill Belichick in that locker room? Nobody ever would dare to question him. Tom Brady sets the tone. I like Tom Brady, but I'm not trying to go off topic here. But Tom Brady sets the tone from the top. He's not a me guy. He's a we guy, right? He doesn't self-promote in the locker room, or he doesn't even like to talk to the media. It's like he's kicking and screaming. It's grudging for him to even speak. Okay, so that's the tone they set, and I believe that's the biggest reason for their success. They're a we. Here we come with LaShawn. To me, he has made this whole week a me week to a fault, because he's going to hurt his team's collective chance to go win a game it desperately needs. It needs to win. Not he needs to win, it needs to win. And LaShawn, his teammate said on Monday, LaShawn came in and said, I need you guys. I need you to have my back. Well, no, he doesn't. They all need to go to Buffalo together and win a football game. Not for LaShawn, for the Buffalo Bills. They're 6-6 on the edge of the wild card. They desperately need to win a we game, not a me game. That offended me, and I love LaShawn. We've had him on the show, and he's a good kid. He's got a good heart to him. It's a big heart, and it is burned to the core right now by what Chip Kelly did. He can't let it go. He should have just swallowed it for this week. But guess who his coach is? His coach is named Rex Ryan. And what did Rex do when he went back to the Jets? He made it a big me week, didn't he? Didn't he make that game all about?
And they won.
They won, but remember, he said, I'm not even going to go out for the warm-ups. Well, that's a me thing. You know, that's attracting attention by not attracting attention. So I believe that LaShawn feels a little bit empowered by his head coach to go ahead and do what he does. And you and I talk all the time. We want the athletes to speak their hearts, speak their minds, and then we criticize them. Well, in this case, I don't want them to speak their heart or their mind if it damages their football team. And I believe this does. That's just me. Now, Herm went, you know, he said on 6 o'clock Sports Center, he said, okay, I had a long day and I got a little too caught up in this. So he backed off a little bit and calmed down. God bless him. But in this case, I think Herm gets tired of the me with DeMarco, wanted to talk to the owner, maybe being asked, who knows what happened. I'm not sure what happened. But after the biggest win of the year, it's a me thing, right? Adrian, they lose badly. He gets only 8 carries. It's a me thing. We got out-coached. Okay, that's what Herm's reacting to, because he learned the hard way from the bottom up that this is a unity game. Okay?
First of all, let me respond to several things you just said. Number one, when Adrian Peterson spoke, had he put it on him, that would have been about him.
Yeah, he did a little bit.
Let me finish.
Okay,
I know he did. I know he did. But I'm making the point that had he put it on him and left it at that, that would have been about him. But nobody would have had a problem with it. Yeah, it's the fact that he called out his coach.
The team, though. It's like it's my fault for the team.
It's the fact that he called out his coach that was a problem.
It was.
So what I'm saying to you is that we want to pick and choose when it's about you, when it's about somebody else, and what have you. And I'm saying to Coach Herm Edwards, and I would respond to him in kind. He's, you know, a wonderful guy, happily married man, children, etc. You know what? Herm Edwards the dad, because coaches are fond of calling players the kids, their kids, etc., etc. That's the only reason I'm using that analogy. Well, ask any parent about their children. Right? I'm a dad. Ask any parent about their children. What do? They'll tell you, we're going to instill certain things in you, but at the same time, you got to allow kids to be themselves. Okay. You understand? Let their personality shine, etc., etc. Why? Because it's a different world, and it's a different age. And the level of adjustments that you have to make are some. Listen, as a company, as an industry, as a nation, with all the stuff going on, we have to make adjustments. You have to see the forest from the trees and understand that yesteryear ain't today. This ain't the ESPN that it was a decade ago, 20 years ago, 30 years. This ain't that place. It's a different ballgame. The television, the debate shows everywhere. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be Ted Koppel, Peter Jen, and Tom Brokaw and those boys. Brian Gumbel and Bob Costas. It's a different day.
Good point.
What did we do? We adjust to everything. But when it comes to professional sports, we want to sit there and tell these same players, we want to reel you back into old school times because that's what worked for us. Well, it doesn't work for them. And that's the reality of the situation. Everybody, I used to say this about Andy Reid, who I love dearly. I used to say this about Andy Reid and other guys all the time. If everybody has to be choir boys and everybody has to be in lockstep doing exactly what you think they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to do it, what the hell do I need you for as a coach? What are you bringing? Because if everybody has to be your kind of guy, this is one of the things that me personally, talking to Teddy Bruschi's of the world and Willie McGinnis and other former Patriots, they all say about how that Bill Belichick personality y'all get, oh, that's a misnomer. That ain't the dude we deal with, Julian Edelman and all these guys. Bill Belichick allows you to be yourself, whatever that is. Now, the goal is the goal. Let's not lose sight of that. But along the way, be yourself. Just come to work. These are my rules.
Point.
To a point.
You do your job.
Do your job.
Okay.
Do your job and do it well. All right? But you be yourself. I find listening to Herm Edwards yesterday, I found him to be speaking in a fashion that wants guys to be a certain way. If LaShawn McCoy was calling out Rex Ryan like that, we got a problem because that's crossing the line. But talking about a former coach who I will remind this nation has had things said about him that we have never heard about an NFL coach. Ever. You've been covering the NFL for 40 years. Tell me one coach that was talked about in a fashion that Chip Kelly has been talked about.
Oh, Chip Kelly.
Tell me who. There has never, Bill Parcells, from the days of Vince Lombardi and Hank Stram and Chuck Noll, to Bud Grant, to Jimmy, the Bill Walsh and Jimmy Johnson and Tom Landry, and the list goes on and on, to the Bill Parcells, the Bill Belichick, Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, Sean Payton in New Orleans, and it's the list over. All white. All of them. Nobody talked about them. This is not a white-black thing. This is a Chip Kelly thing. Okay. And they're saying to you, LaShawn is saying to you, there's something special about this dude. Y'all don't understand it. And I'm saying, wait a minute. I'll repeat and regurgitate what I said yesterday. How is it that LaShawn McCoy, whether it's through his comments on WIP in Philadelphia, or it's Herm responding to him, Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, and all of, whatever the case may be, how is it that he has to answer questions instead of Chip Kelly having to answer directly the assertions that have been made about him and against him?
Quick point of order, and I wanted to make this for Herm's sake, because I disagree with Herm about this. It's not a new thing. Remember, I covered the Dallas Cowboys for a long time. If I go, I'm going way back now, but do you remember Dwayne Thomas, Super Bowl VI? Yeah. Do you remember Hollywood Henderson?
Oh, question.
And you definitely remember Tony Dorsett, right?
Of course.
Okay, there were a parade of players took on Tom Landry because they all said, all black players, that he was out of touch with the black athlete during all those years of greatness, okay? So they were out front. Dwayne Thomas was leading the charge very publicly.
They were out front. But let's be fair to Tom Landry. Not just old school. It was a different time.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about just hold on.
You're talking about just a few years removed from civil rights, from civil rights legislation.
You're right.
You're down south in the deep south in Texas. I'm just saying that. I'm sorry, southwest. I'm just saying Texas.
It is.
So people up north is Texas. Okay. So I'm like, wait a minute, and you know, and he's Tom Landry. So all of those things being considered, he may have very well been guilty of that because of the times that you're just graduating from, etc.
Yep.
This is 2015. What y'all talking about?
Okay.
And, you know, and even no comparison. No comparison compared to those days.
I was 1,000% behind LaShawn taking a stand about this, and you too.
Yes.
I loved it that you broke the ice on this because you broke the story. There's a time and a place. I don't think you need to revive it through the week in which you're going back to Philadelphia. In this case, this week, you take out your revenge on the football field.
I saw LaShawn McCoy answering questions.
He was. You could just dismiss it and say, I've talked enough about this.
I feel you. But the point is, look, you got folks on there. I'm watching some interview on video last night with John Kasich, governor of Ohio, talking about Donald Trump. Now, he told the interviewer, look, enough. I'm not talking about it. But it was after he answered about 3 questions. So what I'm trying to say to you is that, look, man, if you go to a person and you're in their face and you ask them questions, that's entirely different than them just coming out and marching and looking for trouble. It's entirely different. We got to own the fact that, look, we kind of instigated. That's all I'm saying.
We do. But what's the primary goal this week in the National Football League? Thank you.
All right. So what are we going to say if LaShawn wins? What are we going to say if LaShawn runs for, listen, if LaShawn runs for 185 yards, right, and the Buffalo Bills win, you know what some people in the media are going to say? He's still wrong for doing that to Chip Kelly.
They might.
Come on, man. Come on. I'm just saying. It's like, listen, I would not have done it, but I respect his right to do that because the offense is still fresh. It's still fresh.
It is.
He has a right to feel that way.
And he does way more than DeMarco has a right after a big win to complain about lack of carries or Adrian.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
But
and that's why we felt the need to address Herm, because I have no problem with Herm's position about DeMarco Murray or Adrian Peterson.
Good.
I have a problem with the position that LaShawn McCoy is included in that because I don't think that he deserves that.
I get it. And he has a right to answer questions honestly and speak his truth. But I think, I don't want to speak for Herm, but I think his issue is the totality of this me-first attitude, and he wants it to be we and about the game.
The NFL
got fed up with the pile of it yesterday.
And that's fine.
Right.
But what Herm Edwards needs to understand and embrace respectfully, again, I love this man, is that the NFL is a me-first brand. Damn, they're a me-first brand.
Well, it's an NFL first.
No, but NFL, listen, man, when you're trying to charge people to perform at the Super Bowl, that's bad. That's bad.
That's how big you are.
I'm just saying, when you look at the rules change, it's not, wait a minute, how they get that big? Because they promoted themselves ad nauseum. Okay, let's call it what it is.
Okay.
Let's call it. Listen, we do a fabulous job of promoting ourselves. It ain't an accident that we the worldwide leader. Come on now. I mean, all I'm saying is that, wait a minute, how you gonna knock him for that when you are Herm? You support and worked for and have connections in a league that has been me first since you were playing. How you don't know that?
Okay, but it's league first, right?
He just doesn't like it.
Listen, he just don't like it. That's all I'm saying. He don't like it, but don't make him right.
Okay, but just remember, bottom line, this league will go on being the most popular sport in America without Tom Brady or LaShawn McCoy or anybody else.
That's right. So they got to get theirs while they can get theirs. Whether it's money monetarily or it's speaking their mind about a particular issue that they deem important to themselves.
All right, that's fine.
All right, Jerry Jones says he thought the coaching staff could have done a better job of succeeding despite the injury to Tony Romo, and he's disappointed that it wasn't until Monday night in Washington that they managed to win a game without Romo. Telling the Fort Worth Star-Telegram after Monday's game, quote, "I am stunned that we haven't been able to win more games without Tony, and I would have thought that we could have coached up enough and put it together enough that we would not have lost those games without Romo early. We would be in better shape than we are right now." In that Monday night game, Jones said that the Cowboys won on will, not tactical mastery. Skip, are you surprised by these comments?
Molly, Stephen A., I was pleasantly shocked by these comments. Now, this wasn't a direct hit on Jason Garrett. For all I know, Jerry was talking about the coaching staff in total, the coordinators, the position coaches. But I was pleasantly shocked because I have voiced this to you several times before. My fear, concern, that Jason Garrett has become like a third son to Jerry Jones, and in so doing has become the ultimate puppet for a Jerry Jones who loves to coach the Dallas Cowboys from on high. And I know Jason Garrett. I covered him when he was a player, just a backup quarterback. Very likable guy. But I have been decreasingly a fan of Jason Garrett as a head coach in this league. Maybe a quarterback coach, maybe a coordinator, but not a head coach. I'm with Jerry. This team should have won a couple of those close games that they lost. 6 out of their 7 straight losses were close games that could have gone either way. 2 in overtime, a 1-point loss to Seattle, a 4-point loss at Tampa, a 28-17 lead at halftime against Atlanta in that first game without Tony Romo. They've had their injuries. There was no Romo, and for a long time there was no Dez. They lost Lance Dunbar. They lost Orlando Scandrick. We know about all that. This team was still good enough to win 1 or 2 of those games. I would say 2 of those games without Tony Romo. And my problem with Jason Garrett is I can't recognize him anymore. He's become the ultimate caretaker coach. I've called him a Stepford coach in that he doesn't even look real to me. He looks plastic. What he does best is dodge controversy and slap players on the back after they lose. And there's no urgency. There's no fear of losing instilled in that locker room. Jason Garrett needs leaders to lead for him. And once he lost Dez Bryant as a leader for a number of games, that hurt this team. Once he lost Tony Romo as a leader, an active leader of this team, that hurt. It was down to just Jason Witten or bust, and it was bust. And my problem with Jason Garrett is that as long as things are going great, he's just fine. He's like the coaching equivalent of the quarterback game manager. He can sort of manage a game if it's going okay. But when it's not going okay, he's in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong team. This team was talented enough to win at least 2 of those games without Tony Romo. And I'm hoping that this could lead Jerry Jones, hoping against hope maybe, to look in a different direction at head coach after this year.
In a joking fashion, I would say to you, it's beautiful to hear you say those things, because sometimes I've wondered about you and your pom-poms when it comes to Jason Garrett and all things Cowboys. Even though you have been critical of him in the past, I don't take it seriously because I know how much you love the Cowboys. On a far more serious note, all joking aside, I would say to you, Skip Bayless, that this is the most uncomfortable that I've ever been talking about the Cowboys in all seriousness. I'm not joking. I'm not chiding you or anybody else. I'm getting to a point here.
All right.
I'm very uncomfortable talking about this because I really don't want to start trouble, but I can't help where I'm going. Jason Garrett epitomizes. He is the walking epitome of the angst and the frustration and the disgust that black coaches feel for not getting opportunities. And I'm going to tell you why. Went to Princeton, transferred to Columbia when his dad was coaching there. When his dad got fired after an 0-10 start, God bless him, Jason Garrett, brother, went back to Princeton, passed for over 4,000 yards, was a good quarterback at Princeton. This dude played the vast majority of his career, all but 1 year. His last year was with the New York Giants. Before that, his entire career was with the Dallas Cowboys. Jason Garrett started 9 games in his entire career. He had a 6-3 record. But evidently during that time, backing up Troy Aikman, he ingratiated himself with the owner. You know,
he did.
Remember that friendship. Remember Bill Walsh talking about, well, we don't know certain guys, and they need to ingratiate themselves.
And by the way, Jimmy Johnson's a big fan of Jason Garrett and was a big advocate of Jason.
That's not a problem.
Just for the
not a problem.
Okay.
Because you can look at him and listen to him talk and find that Jason Garrett is an incredibly nice guy.
Yep.
And it's almost impossible. I mean, if he wasn't a member of the Cowboys, I wouldn't root against him. He's a nice guy. Seriously.
He is genuinely a nice guy.
He's a genuinely nice man.
Yep.
But I'm talking fact. I'm not talking emotion. He's 6-3 as a starting quarterback.
He gets the offensive coordinator job with Dallas eventually after being in the league, Tampa, Miami, and other places as an assistant coach or whatever. This man was getting paid just as much as the head coach, Wade Phillips. Mm-hmm. A coordinator getting paid $3 million a year. Mm-hmm. All right? And whenever things happen, it was never his fault. Jerry Jones pointed, Wade Phillips pointed, everybody. Everybody had a problem. But Jason Garrett can't touch Mr. Teflon himself. I'm still trying to figure out how he's Teflon. You can't touch it. Am I lying? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't touch Jason Garrett.
Now, there was a time when it appeared Atlanta wanted to hire him away as the head coach. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you got Atlanta and Miami.
And Miami,
yep. Right? Mm-hmm. So Wade Phillips starts out 1-7. Mm-hmm. Jason Garrett finally gets the head coaching job. Fair enough. He goes 5-3 over the last 8 games. Dallas finishes 6-10. What happens thereafter? 8-8. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. And all 3 times, it was the final regular season game, which would have propelled the Dallas Cowboys to the playoffs. And at least one of those times, they were far more expected to have a better record than they actually had. Yep. Somehow, some way, Jason Garrett still keeps his job.
Agreed.
All right? Then last year comes. Mm-hmm. Now, you want to call it coaching, you go right ahead. What I saw was give the ball to DeMarco Murray 392 times. Let him touch the ball an additional 49 times, catching passes. All totaled, additional 57 times. Mm-hmm. All totaled 449 touches for DeMarco Murray, combined with the MVP caliber year that Tony Romo had. And somehow, some way, Jason Garrett gets credit for this. Mm-hmm. But they lose 7 straight when Tony Romo goes down this year. And we talking about everybody else. Talk about Greg Hardy. Talk about Randy Gregory getting suspended. We talk about Orlando Scandrick getting injured. Mm-hmm. We talk about Romo going down. We talk about Des Bryant and when he's going to be ready. We talk about DeMarco Murray and how he went to Philly. We're talking about everybody but Jason Garrett.
That's true.
Let me say this, because Coach Herm Edwards is going to come on the show to get on me in just a few minutes to beat me up. I know this. But here's the deal. Coach Herm Edwards would have got fired. I can name you, I'm not talking about just Herm Edwards, and I'm not talking about just black coaches. I can name you at least 20 coaches, regardless of ethnicity, that would have lost their job had they done the job that Jason Garrett has done.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Cincinnati.
That's like a whole other.
Anywhere else, he would have lost his job. Right. 12 years, not even a playoff victory. Anywhere else. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Marvin Lewis would have lost his job, and you know I've always been saying that. But here's the flip side. All I'm saying to you is this. When you look at Jason Garrett, you see, when you sit up here as an African American in this nation, what you're after is fairness. You just want the curtain to fall. Mm-hmm. You want the proverbial glass ceiling to disappear, and you want to know that it's the closest thing to a meritocracy that you can find.
Yep.
When you look at Jason Garrett, back-to-back 8-8 seasons. Come on now. I mean, and then you have this season. Listen, we understand that Tony Romo is important. The quarterback position is important. You can't lose. Mm-hmm. But how in God's name do you go 0-7? You can't win a couple of games. Anybody else would have been fired. But somehow Jason Garrett keeps his job. You know why he's got his job? Because the owner loves him.
He does.
And all I'm saying to you is that, what's another person supposed to do with that? It's not about my credentials. It's not about my education. It's not about what I've accomplished. It's not about what I know. Oh, I'm friends with the owner who's like a father to me, so I get to keep my job. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it is rare in America that a black man has that luxury. And that is the problem. I'm going to say it. I'm going to close. Jason Garrett is the walking epitome.
He is.
Of
mediocrity.
The frustration and the disgust and the unfairness and the proverbial glass ceiling that black folks continuously allude to that never come their way. It's a damn shame that this man is the head coach of this team, considering nothing but his record. I don't know him personally. I'm not taking anything away from him. I hear he's a wonderful man. He seems that way. God bless him and his family. I'm not wishing anything. I'm just saying that the benefits that he enjoys is one of significant privilege.
It is. I would
And
agree.
I'll leave it at that.
And I appreciate every word you just uttered. And I would tell you that from my vantage point, what you just elocuted is the reverse of the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule mandates that if a job comes open, you must at least interview black candidates, at least interview. The reverse of this rule is, how long does a white coach who has a job get to keep his job?
Well, in fairness to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, I am not sitting there and I'm not pointing out white when it comes to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones just loves Jason Garrett. If this was another white coach that was doing this, Jerry Jones would have fired him already.
Yeah.
He just has a special affinity.
He does.
The only reason I bring the black-white element into it is that I am challenging. When has a black coach had the benefit of such a relationship with an owner? You can say Marvin Lewis.
Just Marvin Lewis.
Well,
That's
Marvin Lewis has been to the playoffs 6 times.
He has.
He has been to the playoffs.
He's been far more successful.
I think he needs to
than
win a
Jason
playoff
Garrett.
game.
I know.
But he has been to the playoffs 6 times.
He has.
I'm just saying.
Quick question, black and white out of it. Do the Cowboys need a new coach, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Jason Garrett warrants being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys based on his record.
Okay.
He doesn't warrant it.
Skip?
Well, obviously, if a miracle occurs,
Yeah, okay.
that
We'll
would
wait
be my
till the
only
end of the
asterisk
season.
there.
Okay.
The biggest New Year's Eve party of all time. And you're invited. The Orange Bowl, Clemson, Oklahoma. At the 5, touchdown, Alabama. The Cotton Bowl, Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff. Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
I wouldn't go above Taylor because of the versatility that Taylor had, in terms of pass coverage. And, he was a pass rusher and a run player and, also a pass defender. He was really an elite player, including the kicking game. And, of course, Watt's blocked a lot of kicks, too. So, but I think for the position he plays, he's as disruptive of a decent defensive lineman as I've seen in the league. In the same general category as LT.
Bill Belichick had an up-close view to Lawrence Taylor's career, and he sees a lot of the same traits in Texans DN J.J. Watt. Belichick was the New York Giants linebackers coach and then defensive coordinator for the first 10 years of Taylor's career there. Belichick comparing Watt to LT. Herm Edwards is here with some perspective, obviously former coach and player, and you played in the same division as LT from 81 to 85. I want to get your reaction on those comments, but first, Stephen A.
Forgive me for diverting away. I just finished talking about Jason Garrett. I'd be remiss in neglecting Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher has been a head coach in the NFL for 21 years. I'm sure he's a nice man as well. 21 years, Houston, then Tennessee, then the St. Louis Rams. 21 years, 6 playoff appearances in 21 years. 3 division titles in 21 years. 1 conference championship in 21 years. No Super Bowl title. And 15 of the 21 years, he has not made the playoffs, and he has not had a record above 500 since he was coaching in Tennessee in 2008. But Hugh Jackson gets fired after an 8-8 season in Oakland, and he has to be an offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, waiting for an opportunity to become a head coach.
He's doing a fantastic job.
I'm just saying.
You guys are hot today,
Coach.
Yeah.
You guys
He's
are
like
hot.
a cat.
Are we
He's
good,
got more
Coach?
than 9 lives.
Are we good, Coach?
I'm leaving it alone. I ain't going there.
Coach, you're on fire.
Go ahead, Skip.
Have I voiced my disapproval of Jeff Fisher on this show?
Many times.
I think you have.
Many times.
I think you have.
Actually, you've done it far more than I have.
All right, Herm, let's get into it. What were your thoughts on Belichick's comments comparing Watt and LT?
I'm going to have to agree with Bill.
Yeah.
In the fact that LT was a little bit more versatile than JJ. Not saying JJ couldn't do some of the things that LT did, but he was in an era too where the run was more prolific when Lawrence Taylor played. It was the era of the running backs, and he was a disruptor just like JJ Watt. You had to know when you lined up word 56 lined up, no different than JJ Watt. He's versatile, great athlete. Big man, physical, does everything, like Coach said. And Coach coached him. So, he coached LT.
Yeah.
So he has a good feel for him. he could wreck your offense.
How different that he could stand up and move around, right?
And he was good in coverage. He didn't get a lot of credit for that. I mean, he could cover backs out of the backfield, tight ends. He could run. J.J. Watt can run too. Mm-hmm. They're both disruptors. He was an MVP in '86, I believe.
Mm-hmm, he was.
Now, J.J. Watt's going to be a repeater of the MVP award, I think, defensively for multiple years because of what he does.
He's won it twice already.
Yeah, and you think about LT now. He played with Harry Carson. He's a pretty good backer, too, now. And Van Pelt, pretty good backer. And Brian Kelly. But he was the guy. I mean, he was the guy when you, even as a defensive player, and J.J. Watt gets this same thing, or as a coach, or as an offensive player, when you're not on the field, you stand up to watch him. Mm-hmm. I mean, you actually stand up to watch him, especially in big moments. You go, where's 99 at, or where's 56 at? Because they're about, it's like, when you watch offense, you go, okay, the quarterback, we're going to watch the wide receiver, we get it. But it's very not common where you stand up and watch the defensive player. The only guy I ever watched when I came in the league, and you'll appreciate this, and Stephen A will too, we played the Detroit Lions my rookie year in Detroit. Landry was the quarterback. And I can remember when Lim Barney came in the game. Because the corner got hurt. He was a veteran guy, wasn't a starter. And Lim Barney actually came in the game and got a standing ovation.
Wow.
A defensive player, Lim Barney. And I can remember watching Lim Barney as a young guy, and I got up from the bench and went, that's Lim Barney. That is Lim Barney.
No, I felt that way about Dion, too.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. But those two guys they're difference makers.
All right.
They're stars. There's no doubt.
Fire away.
I'll defer to y'all. Being around the game longer, playing and coaching it before doing this, you covering the sport for 40 years. But I will tell you that as a youngster, growing up during my teenage years and then in my early 20s, watching Lawrence Taylor perform was something sensational. I love me some J.J. Watt. He's big time. The 20.5 sacks he's had in 2 of the last 3 years, Lawrence Taylor only did that once in his entire career, even though it was a different time. And like you said, they ran the ball more. So you're right. But here's where I somewhat part ways with Coach Belichick, yourself, whatever. In terms of game planning and having the guy to watch, without question, J.J. Watt is right there with Lawrence Taylor. But Lawrence Taylor, to me, there was more of a fear factor. J.J. Watt doesn't do that. You know he's going to tackle you. You know he might sack you. He'll jump up and block your passes. He'll impede your progress in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But Lawrence Taylor scared the living hell out of you. Because this is the best way I can explain it. J.J. Watt, who's got about 45 tackles, already 13.5 of Houston's 30 sacks this year, okay? J.J. Watt is the guy that barks. Lawrence Taylor was the guy that had everybody barking with him. Lawrence Taylor was the kind of guy that turned everybody, all the defensive players around him into Rough Riders and straight up dogs because Lawrence Taylor was out there howling. Like, you knew you had to do your job, and that's it. You know, give him a little time, he's going to get to the quarterback. Give him a little time, he's going to make a difference. But you found yourself wanting to step up and make your own difference because of what Lawrence Taylor was bringing to the table. You didn't know what side he was coming from. You didn't know. I mean, and not only that, the rules were different, so you didn't have to worry about hitting the quarterback upside the head. Joe Theismann, I mean, God rest his soul. You got to remember, I love Joe Theismann, still alive and kicking, but he ain't kicking as much as he used to after that leg got broke by Lawrence Taylor. Not intentionally, of course, because Lawrence Taylor jumped up and was waving the paramedics. Come on over. That was scary.
That made LT's mystique because it was Monday Night Football.
Right.
And it was right there for the world to see.
I mean, and he almost cried because he was so worried about Theismann because that's how vicious it was.
It was a basic compound fracture where the bone comes into the skin.
He didn't mean to do it, of course. He just wanted to sack him. He didn't mean to do that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, that mystique, I don't see anyone. And it might not be J.J. Watt's fault. Khalil Mack is coming. He ain't going to be Lawrence Taylor. It may not be his fault. It may be the fault of the league rules and how you have to guard against so many things that you can't necessarily be as vicious as you once were. But back in the day,
Lawrence Taylor on that football field, prancing back and forth, just scowling and stalking us. I don't see any defensive player that has instilled that level of fear. And as much as I love J.J. White and as great as he is, I don't get that from him.
That's a good point.
I am very with that point. Now, back to what Bill Belichick said and his motivation for saying what he did say. It is my humble opinion from a distance that Bill Belichick went out of his way to praise J.J. Watt because his quarterback by the name of Tom Brady has taken 32 quarterback hits over the last 3 games behind a decimated offensive line, and they are on their way to Houston, Texas for a Sunday night game featuring J.J. Watt. So I think he went out of his way to at least go to the point of he's in the same general category of LT. That's not saying he's LT
what's he
or better
hoping
than
for, Skip? It ain't like J.J. Watt ain't gonna hit him because of it.
Well, you got to butter him up a little bit. You got to say something nice. That was for Belichick. That was like gushing. Was that not like gushing for Bill Belichick? He doesn't say that about anybody else.
It was gushing, but I'm just saying maybe because it was factual as opposed. I mean, ain't gonna make J.J. Watt let up.
That's one of those things where he's setting you up and then he beats you by 20.
That's what
right?
I think.
Yeah, I hope so. But look. It's not factual because I'm offended for Lawrence Taylor's sake that Bill would even go to put him in the same general category. It's too soon for that. This is J.J. Watt's 5th year. I've told you before, I'm not completely sold. I can't even go to all-time great yet.
I don't know how you can.
Okay, well, I can't because of the records. I look at what he's done so far. 2 of his first 4 years, their team was just flat-out bad. And now they've got Clowney on the opposite side. I don't know what's going on with him, but I never even see him. Is he a bust? I don't know.
Bust.
You would
struggling
think,
right now.
Yeah, okay.
Struggling.
Bust. Okay, so we get it that he's made 3 Pro Bowls in 4 years, says J.J. Watt, 2 times Defensive Player of the Year. He's played in 4 playoff games. 2 were at home against Andy Dalton, and they won those 2 games at Houston, okay? And you don't put a whole lot of stock in that, right? Mm-hmm. So he's 2-2 in the postseason. Lawrence Taylor's teams, featuring Lawrence Taylor, were 10-5 in the postseason. That's spectacular. 10-5, and he won 2 Super Bowl rings and could have maybe won a couple of more, but that's how good that team was because of that player. I've never seen anything like that player. Everything you just said, he lifted the whole show up. He lifted the offense up. The offense played with more confidence because he could wreck the other team's offense.
No doubt.
I've just not seen that. I don't see that yet from J.J. Watt. And again, Lawrence Taylor made 10 Pro Bowls in 13 years and 8 times was voted first team All-Pro. I mean, he was just like a no-doubt lock first ballot Hall of Famer in his first year. He won Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. I knew it his first year. I said, that's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Okay? I just need to see more. Is that fair? Can I see more from J.J. Watt?
And he's got a problem with this. I mean, there's no consistency on the offensive side of football for the guy.
Yeah.
To lift anybody. Who was he lifting?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? You got Phil Simms over there, and he's a pretty good quarterback, and you got some good runners, and okay. Well, so I get all that, but he is a guy that when you break the huddle in today's world, 99, the count. You got to set the count. Where's he at?
Okay. Is it easier to double team 99 because he's more of an interior
Probably,
player?
yeah. It's a little bit more, yeah.
Okay.
And we open formations up a lot more. We're LT. I mean, there wasn't a lot of open formations early in his career, but you're right. You're talking about a guy that's just that can raise havoc.
You bring up a very valid point, and Skip, where I would challenge you on your point is that and you've lamented the state of the game in terms of the changes that have taken place. And so you have to look at how the game has changed and how it affects defensive players. I bring up to you constantly I'm trying to tell you right now. I mean, I can't talk to Ray Lewis about the defense in the NFL. He loses his mind because he feels Ray Lewis literally is of the mindset that defensive players should come together and go up to the league office and address their concerns. He thinks that it should be, bloated about, bloviated about in the media. They think it's so crazily unfair. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and to see J.J. Watt and the kind of impact that he has, in today's game where all the odds are stacked against them. And then you've got quarterbacks that there's no continuity. All you got is DeAndre Hopkins. There's other guys, like Short and others that can play. But in the end, what it comes down to is you look at some guys on Houston. You have no continuity at the quarterback position. Arian Foster's out for the year. So when you look at it from that perspective, Bill O'Brien is doing an outstanding job, and we were critical of him early in the year.
I don't know. I can't go outstanding.
Well, I'm saying outstanding because, look, we thought they were dead. We thought they were dead.
They would be if they were in any division but that one.
But I'm just saying, they were 2-5.
It's the NFC East.
They're 4-1 in their last 5 games.
Last quick point.
They're 4-5. 4-1.
Before the year started, I believe it was NFL.com ranked J.J. Watt the most valuable player in all of football.
Defensive player.
No.
I'm saying what
every
they said.
player.
I'm saying what they said was, you and I said they were wrong. I'm saying he is the most valuable
defensive player. Defense. I'll give you that.
Right.
But he's not more valuable than Brady or Aaron Rodgers or you name a quarterback. It's a quarterback's game. I'm sorry.
It is a quarterback's game. There's no doubt.
You talked about Taylor commanding attention on the sideline here. Taylor, last defensive player to win the league's MVP award, that was 1986, long time ago. Belichick also said, this would be a good time for JJ to rest if he wanted to.
All right. I just want you to know, you're still my man. We good.
Always good.
I'm just saying.
Always good.
We just
that was never a question.
We just letting America know, you want to go there. We know that.
We're good.
Everybody's good.
Everybody's good, and the Texans and Patriots play on Sunday at Houston. That'll be good as well.
Well, on the last white running back to win the Heisman was John Cappelletti of Penn State in 1973. That's 42 years ago. Do you think McCaffrey being white helps or hurts his chances?
Oh, it hurts. Stereotypes become deeply held convictions for a great many people. And to me, Tony, in order in sports, boxing and then basketball and then football, these are the places where African American men, acceptable in some parts in no other place in conventional American life, are accepted above all else in those things. Boxing, basketball, and now football, if you weren't quarterback until recently. But so now you get a place, Tony, where this kid's an outsider looking in.
Yeah.
And the stereotype works against him, even though I would vote for him for the Heisman. I think he's the best player in college football by far.
All right, of course, that was our Mike Wilbon talking about Christian McCaffrey's chances of winning the Heisman as a white running back. Our Joe Shad spoke to the Stanford Star about the comments, and Shad tweeted the following reaction from McCaffrey. Christian saying this: I don't focus on race, just football. Most white running backs are perceived to be big up the middle guys. I don't fit that stereotype. Stephen A., what's your take on McCaffrey?
I think he's outstanding. I was a fan of his father's when he played. I think that he is outstanding to the point where I'm willing to go so far as to say he may very well be a better NFL player than Derrick Henry. But I don't believe for one second.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm saying I think it's possible because I think out of the backfield catching passes or whatever, I just look at him. He just seems to be a bit more elusive and a bit quicker as opposed to faster than Derrick Henry. And I think that Derrick Henry runs a little high. He's basically a power back, and running backs out of Alabama, quite frankly, have to prove to me that they could get it done on a pro level. Because Trent Richardson has sullied all of them right now. I loved him at Alabama. Mark Ingram can play. Mark Ingram can play. But at the same time, it wasn't like, he was a star on the NFL level, even though he's very good. And I think Trent Richardson just ended up being in the wrong situation, to be quite honest with you. But I root for that brother as well. I wish him nothing but the best. But I look at Derrick Henry this year. He has been nothing short of big time. And I take into account the level of competition. I've watched McCaffrey, and I'm just looking at some of his numbers right here. 243 yards rushing against UCLA, 206 against Oregon State, 147 against Colorado and Oregon. I can't ignore any of that. 1,847 yards rushing, averaging about 5.8 yards a carry. He's been spectacular. The last time I checked, so is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has nearly 2,000 yards rushing. Got 1,987, I think. He's got about 23 touchdowns, to McCaffrey's 8. I'm looking at Derrick Henry. I'm looking at what Roll Tide would be without him. I'm looking at the fact that there are victories against Leonard Fournette and LSU, against Texas A&M when they were relevant, against
Georgia, with Mark Richt. When they walked into Georgia, in Athens, Georgia, Georgia was ranked 6th in the nation, and they were coming, and everybody was talking about a national championship, and he outplayed Nick Chubb. He outplayed, he basically outplayed Georgia when they stomped Georgia.
And by the way, it finally cost Mark Richt his job.
That's right.
Finally.
So you outplayed Nick Chubb. You outplayed Leonard Fournette. All right. You handled your business at Auburn. Okay. You beat Texas A&M. You beat LSU. All of these things. And I'm like, and you're Alabama. Now, to get to Mike Wilbon's point, because that's really the impetus for this conversation. Well, that's the Godfather. So I defer to Mike Wilbon to some degree. I love him dearly, known him for years, look up to him all my professional career. In this particular instance, even though he's not wrong with anything he has said per se, I just think the part that he's missing is that when we talk about Alabama, all guns are blazing, national semifinal last year, Nick Saban, Roll Tide, nationally televised, all that pressure and the level of competition. All of those things, to me, factor into why Derrick Henry would probably appears more deserving for the Heisman as well as his level of production. Whereas McCaffrey, I don't think it's just that he's white. I think it's the fact that you're talking about Stanford. They've lost a couple of games as opposed to just one. Not to mention the fact that the level of competition that they performed against, to some people, wouldn't be up to snuff compared to what Alabama went against in the SEC. So I look at it from all of those perspectives, and I say to you, come to me and tell me that McCaffrey may be deserving of being a higher pick in the NFL draft than Derrick Henry, I might roll with that. I got to think about that a little bit, but I might roll with it. But in terms of the Heisman, as far as I'm concerned, it's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's the Heisman.
So back to the question. Do you believe Christian McCaffrey's color is costing him any Heisman votes as we speak?
No. I believe it's where he's playing, who he's playing against.
Okay. I'm with you on this. Apologies to my friend Michael Wilbon. He was an early debate partner of mine in some of the first debate this network ever televised back in the early 1990s.
That's the part that people don't know about you. You actually were one of the pioneers when it came to debate shows on television. People tend to forget that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to call attention to the 2009 Heisman race, in which one Toby Gerhart, a Stanford running back who happened to be white, finished a very close second in the closest Heisman race in history to the aforementioned Mark Ingram. Very close vote. Toby Gerhart wound up with 222 first-place votes, and Mark had only 227, so it went right to the wire. And I was dumbfounded that Toby Gerhart was able to make it that close. Toby Gerhart's Stanford team finished the regular season 8-4. Mark Ingram's Alabama Roll Tide team was 13-0 at that point. And I thought, case closed. Silly me, but I could make a case, and I have no evidence of this, this was just my thought from a distance, that the mere fact that Toby was white helped him get some votes I didn't think he deserved. That's just me. And again, I don't have any way to prove that, but that was my thought as I watched that vote unfold and watched it announced, I believe, on ESPN that night. I was like, what? It was that close by an 8-4 team's best player? That's ridiculous to me. Okay, now back to this race. And again, apologies to Michael Wilbon, but Baker Mayfield is the best player in college football, and he didn't even get invited. But that's another topic for tomorrow's show. Okay. Just for the record. Look, Christian McCaffrey has had a sensational year, a groundbreaking year, because he broke the all-time single-season record for total yards, all-purpose yards, running, catching, receiving. I don't know if are punt returns included in that. I'm not sure. But
I'm not sure.
Okay, but the point is, he's averaging 5.8 yards per rush, but more important,
returns are included.
Returns are included. Yeah, that's what I thought. 13.2 yards per catch, and a whole lot of that is run after catch. He is incredibly elusive, but I'm going to point this out to you. He is 6 feet tall and weighs 201 pounds, okay? So he's not what you would call he's not Derrick Henry.
Right.
he's definitely not Leonard Fournette. He's not that classic NFL 230-pound running back.
When I say him over Derrick Henry, I'm thinking about the multiple ways you would use him on the NFL level.
You can use it.
Right.
Like Danny Woodhead is still a very...
That's right.
He can do a lot of damage and has done it for years in this league, doing that kind of thing. And Danny Woodhead's smaller than Christian McCaffrey. I could even see him becoming a Julian Edelman type player as more of a slot receiver or slot back type.
Got it.
Okay, he can do a lot of things. He's got some great genes now. His father was a very good NFL wide receiver, and his mother was an athlete at Stanford. So great genes, and he grew up thinking, I can do this. You know, he grew up in the NFL locker rooms, and I love kids who grew up the sons of players or coaches where they're around good players, and they say, I can do this. I'm as good as they are. I want to do this. Okay? So I love what he can do in college football, but his team lost 2 games. Sorry to bring this up, but they lost their opening game at Northwestern. Were they not ready to play? It was 16-6. I watched the whole game because I was dumbfounded at the outcome, and I couldn't believe that Stanford could score only 6 points because of the quarterback and because of this running back. And I thought, wow, really? You only score 6 points? And again, Christian had a bad game at Northwestern. He had 12 carries for 66 yards, caught 5 for 23 yards. Blah. And then they lost at home to Oregon in a shootout, and he had big numbers in that game. But my point is, if you lose 2 games, for me, I need you to show me that you carried your team to greatness if you're going to be the Heisman.
And I'm of the mindset that Derrick Henry has carried Alabama's offense.
There's no doubt.
You know, there's no question.
Okay.
And so for me, to carry a program is one thing, but for it to be Alabama, with the teams they go against, with the national spotlight and the pressure that comes with it, and to do that, it speaks to me that Derrick Henry, you know, and again, I'm not saying that McCaffrey's better, because I don't believe that McCaffrey. I just think that McCaffrey, you can use him in a myriad of ways.
Last quick point. I need a quick reaction from you. When you say the stereotype of the white running back at the NFL level, it's not a stereotype, it's just a historical fact. Because I went back through the Pro Bowls. The last white running back to make a Pro Bowl was Mike Allstott, remember? And he was more of a fullback type, right? But he was a touchdown machine because he was short yardage, goal line type runner. Never ran for more than 1,000 yards in a season, but he made 6 Pro Bowls, and the last was in 2002. Before that, you have to go back to my friend Craig James, another guy I worked with earlier on.
Craig James.
Okay, that was 1985.
Craig James? No, not I'm thinking of Craig Morton. I apologize.
Yeah, Craig James.
Yep.
Okay, he was a great white running back for the New England Patriots. Yes, made a Pro Bowl in 1985 when they made it to the Super Bowl and got destroyed by Jim McMahon's Chicago Bears.
That's right.
Okay, and remember John Riggins back in 1975, stud white running back.
That's right.
But look how far back I'm having to go. So it's not. Stereotype doesn't mean it's misleading. It's just a fact.
Same thing with receivers. It's just fact.
It's just a fact.
That's great insight and perspective, right there. All right, number 6 Stanford takes on number 5 Iowa. That's in the Rose Bowl. And McCaffrey 24 yards shy of Toby Gerhart for the most single-season rush yards in Stanford history. Little UFC now. Well, that was quick. UFC President Dana White told the LA Times yesterday that it's Rousey next for Holly Holm. That's right. A date of July 9th in Las Vegas has been cleared for that rematch. However, Holly Holm would actually like to fight sooner than July. Her manager said they'd like her to defend her belt in the interim against top-ranked contender Miesha Tate. Dana White isn't concerned with Holmes or her camp's wishes, though. Stephen A., do you have a problem with White dictating the rematch and making Holmes sit?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's rare because I usually don't. I love Dana White. I loved having him on the show. He and I go back a long ways. Got a lot of respect for the job that he's done with the UFC. I wish I literally, tried to get him to take over boxing. It would be lovely if there was a commissioner in boxing that mandated, guys having to fight one another instead of avoiding them for years and not giving us the fights we want to see when we want to see them. Having said all of that, in this particular instance, I think it's incredibly unfair to Holly Holm. I haven't heard a response from Dana White, but I'm sure I will eventually. It's just one of those situations where Holly Holmes beat her up pretty good, and I don't say that disrespectfully. I love the fact that there are so many fighters in the UFC that are giving Ronda Rousey the respect that she deserves, because she deserves it. Styles make fights. Anybody could lose on any given day, and that just wasn't her night. And that style She wasn't ready for it because Holly Holm can really box. She's an exceptional world champion boxer. Having said all of that, what works for her is to get back in the octagon and the fight. And to have her sitting back, it is December. To have her sitting back, waiting for Ronda Rousey to prepare for her, where she doesn't get to fight until July. It may be savvy on the part of Dana White because I think it elevates Ronda Rousey's chances of coming back, which obviously is something that Dana White would prefer because Ronda Rousey is still more marketable than anybody in the sport. So I understand it from that perspective. It's just one of those rare situations where I wish that in the process of running the sport the way that you run it and forcing fights to take place, I wish that you were being more fair to Holly Holm. Let's say Ronda Rousey was ready to go, like she lost, but she didn't get beat up to the point where she could be back in the ring in February or March. I would have no problem with it. That's your next fight. But in this case, you're asking Holly Holm to literally deny her from fighting one or two, denying her the right to compete in one or two extra fights. And that's potentially jeopardizing her because, as she said when she came on the show, she likes the activity. Sure. She wants to get back up in there. That's when she's at her best. And to me, any commissioner of a sport should love a fighter like that wants to get into the ring as much as they possibly can and are not willing to run from anybody. But to have her waiting just because Ronda Rousey ain't ready to go, I think is unfair. Ronda Rousey acknowledged, to Ramona Shelburne for ESPN. She said, hey, she can't eat an apple for a few months. 6 months.
That was a fantastic piece, by the way, and the actress
Ramona Shelburne
did a tremendous job.
Ramona, what a wonderful job, Ramona. Absolutely spectacular job. But the thing is that how you going to sit? I mean, you can't eat an apple for 6 months. You lost some teeth. Well, it's Holly Holm. Yeah. It's Holly. Well, that's what she said. I'm saying it's Holly Holm's fault, but it ain't her problem. She should be allowed to get back in there and do, especially when what she wants to do is fight, and that's what she's paid to do. Okay. She's being prohibited from fighting. I don't like that.
I don't either. But I find this terribly unfair to both fighters because this underlines the fact for me that the weight of this entire sport is on one woman's shoulder. And I'm not talking about the women's side, I'm talking about men's and women's. The weight of an entire sport is on the shoulders of one Ronda Rousey. And back to Ramona's sensational piece, I read it and was just stunned by it because it was the portrait of a shattered fighter, shattered mentally and physically by losing her first fight and having such a hard time coping with it to the point that it was such a sad piece. When I got to the end, I wondered if Ronda will ever fight again at all. That's how it came across to me because she took such a beating and it was such a shock to her and she felt such pressure to carry the whole sport, to do all the interviews, all the press, all the media building up to it, that she was a shell of herself, she felt like, when she got to the fight. Okay? So this is unfair because now you're putting all the focus and all the pressure back on her to save the day of UFC in general, the whole sport, and wait until July to do it again.
Right. Let's pause for a second. Right. So I'm going the route that it was unfair to Holly.
I'm doing
You're
both.
saying it's unfair to Ronda.
Both too. Yes, it's unfair to Ronda because you're going to put so much. She talked and talked about the pressure she felt to live up to this thing that to be fair here, she helped create this mystique with all of her trash talk and all of her I am the greatest kind of Ali type talk. Right. I'm going to kick her tail, that kind. And she got hers kicked. She got hurt in the fight, both physically and mentally. I'm not sure she'll ever I'm not sure she wants to do this again. Well, she's got other things she enjoys doing, although she said in the piece,
she
what
said,
else am I going to do?
Come back. I have to do it.
I got it.
Well, she got hurt. She got beat up. I watched the fight again last night. She got hurt real bad. But I don't think this is unfair to her. And the reason why I don't think this is unfair to her, you were an undefeated champion. And you are bad, you know what, except for that night. And now I believe it would have been unfair to Ronda Rousey to say, when you come back, it must be against Holly Holmes 2 months from now. 3 months. Oh, no. We don't want that. And obviously, a medical mandate, she got to take, as Dana White explained to us, she got to take 90 days. So we understand that. I guess what I'm saying to you is, I don't feel it's unfair to Ronda because you got the full 6 months to rehabilitate. Dana White just texted me.
Okay.
He says, quote, we wouldn't have another fight for Holly until June anyway. So it's less than a month longer. That's what he's saying. In other words, Holly would not have been able to fight.
So it wouldn't even be like there's a winter fight
until
so
June.
So Miesha Tate can't fight in the next couple months?
I don't know. I think he wants him to fight in UFC 200. But what I'm saying is that if Holly wasn't going to fight, wasn't going to be able to fight until June, then it debunks that argument. It knocks that argument.
Dana's saying we wouldn't have, but it sounds like her manager has other plans. Like they would have another fight if it was their
calling the shots. But here's one thing, though, and this is where it becomes difficult. Now, if they did fight and she fights Miesha Tate and Miesha wins, then it doesn't set up that big rematch. That's also an issue, too, though, Stephen A., when it's marketability and these huge stars is so important for the sport like boxing.
Molly, I feel you, Molly, but here's my problem. Dana White knows that the kind of beat down that Holly Holm put on Ronda Rousey, it don't matter what Holly Holmes does to anybody else. Anybody's going to want to see that rematch. Because that's what happened, because it's about Rousey. You see what I'm saying? It's not two no names and then it was upset. Rousey is the most marketable figure, and if nothing else, you can market the fact that this person is the one that beat her up. Now, boxing's different. Because boxing, being undefeated, having that elite record, and then all of a sudden being unblemished and whatever, that has a profound effect from a promotional perspective with most fighters. Not all, because Manny Pacquiao got put to sleep, and he was still coming back, and everybody was looking forward to seeing him where another fighter, they would have said, you're done after a knockout like that. But for the most part, when you lose, it damages you in boxing. In the UFC, it's rare that anybody is undefeated. There are plenty of mega fights with guys that have losses on their record. So that would be about Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey getting a second crack at her.
Okay, but remember, you're going to maximize Ronda's chances to win the rematch if you make Holly sit for 9 months without fighting, right?
I agree with that. Okay. That's my position. But if he's saying that you weren't going to be able to fight until June anyway, then that's a problem.
Says Dana.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I'm just telling you what he said.
And to your point, and obviously we saw this article, it did appear she really had the weight of the world on her shoulders, and that pressure, because there aren't the male stars like the GSP and the John Jones, I know, coming back, and the Anderson Silva. So she really had the pressure.
She was it.
But you know what? You got to be like John Jones and others in this respect. John Jones had fights and whatever. He always came ready, and he didn't take on more than he could chew from media obligations, etc., etc.
So she's going to learn from this.
Let's not put it on the UFC. They didn't make Ronda do everything. She chose to do some of those things. Some of them. I'm just saying that she could have said no.
Regardless, it can be a learning lesson for her, cutting off those distractions moving forward. And the true test of a champion, right? How they come back from resiliency, get knocked down. We'll see if she comes back and performs.
I wish her luck.
You can feel a buzz in the air. You know something special is about to occur.
Clemson, Oklahoma, followed by Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff, 3 Eastern, New Year's Eve, on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
LeSean, why didn't you take Chip's phone calls? He said he...
Man, listen, I'm not talking to Chip. You know, we got nothing to talk about. He can't call me. He can't shake my hand. There's nothing he can do with me. You know, he can't say to me. So, I mean, that's simple as that.
Why?
I don't dislike him. I don't have nothing against him. But there's nothing we can talk. There's nothing for us to talk about.
All right, LaShawn McCoy going off on Chip Kelly yesterday. Their relationship has been well documented this week. Well, Bills great Thurman Thomas had some interesting comments to McCoy. Here they are. I told him today, I said, you know what? The last time that the Bills and former players were emotionally high was the New England game lost in week 2 this season. And we can't allow ourselves to do that. You can't allow yourself to get caught up in what's going to be happening with the game, especially with the crowd and Chip and all that. You have to go out and keep doing what you've been doing the past 4 or 5 weeks, and you will be fine. Oh, Skip.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel McCoy is handling this?
Stephen A. Smith, wise words from the great Thurman Thomas. You can't get too caught up in the the pre-week emotion of what's already going to be an extremely emotional game. I have no idea how LaShawn is going to perform back in Philadelphia, but too many times in my career, I have seen teams get too high, too keyed up for a game and not been able to channel that emotion or that anger into performance, where you're trying too hard, you get out of sync, out of whack, nothing seems to click, everybody's on different pages. All of a sudden you get out there, and I thought that was a good example he brought up. I thought Buffalo would really test Tom Brady and company up in Orchard Park in week 2, and you know the rest of that story. They just weren't ready, and maybe they got too high. I don't know exactly what happened emotionally to that football team, but to me, this is a tricky topic because I told you I 1,000% believe in the stance that LaShawn took. It was an important stance to take. And the last thing he needed to do this week is to back off that stance. But I also believe that the thing he did not need to do was to expand on that stance or let it be carried through Wednesday into Thursday. At some point, he needed to cut it off and say, this is about us, not me. That was my issue with you when we opened the show today. It's such a unity game. It's such a we game instead of a me game. And it feels like LaShawn, thanks probably in part to a head coach that often makes it a me thing certainly when he went back to play the Jets, that it's to the detriment of the team to go in on Monday, as several of his teammates said, and LaShawn went to some of the key players on the team. I need you. You got to have my back in this game. Well, that's fine. They love him. He's been their driving force this year, and I hope he is, because I'm rooting for the Bills to win this game on Sunday. But it's to a fault if you're saying, I need you to help me win this game, as opposed to we need to go win this game because we're a 6-6 out of the playoffs wild card possible team. We got to go win this if we're going to have any chance. They can win this game. I think they're a little better than Philadelphia, regardless of what happened in Foxborough last Sunday. So you need to close ranks and make it us instead of I. That's just me. And it comes, I know he's answering questions there, but he let it linger, drag through the week. And you can drag the focus out of your team onto you. Not cool, not healthy, not mentally healthy for a football team.
So you want LaShawn McCoy to lie?
No, not lie. You address it on Monday, or maybe even Sunday after the game, but it's better probably Monday, and then just let it go.
I wasn't talking about to the media. No. I'm saying that when he went to his teammates, Skip Bayless, I think what LaShawn McCoy was saying is not just don't let me down, like bring it all bring it all you got, but he's also saying have my back on this, like get me the ball. In other words, this is a moment where he wants to be the reason this team wins.
That's fine.
He doesn't want you to walk away from this game just with the Buffalo Bills winning. He doesn't want to be this week's version of DeMarco Murray, where I'm running the ball 8 times for 24 yards.
Okay, but don't you tell Chan Gailey that?
I understand, but you're talking to the guys that block for you.
All right.
You're talking to the receivers that you may want to be patient when they're giving you the football. You're talking to a guy in Tyrod Taylor who's completing nearly 70% of his passes, and you want to make sure he's handing you that football or throwing you those swing passes so you can do your thing. And listen, I'm not defending that part. I'm saying that's what he wants. Let's just cut through the chase. He wants to have a big game, okay? Because that's how this rings. It's like, listen, when Deshaun Jackson was let go by the Philadelphia Eagles, who interviewed him? That was me. I was in South Beach, interviewed him at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in South Beach. It was plastered all over ESPN for days, if not weeks. And everywhere else, everybody else was picking it up because of the things that Deshaun Jackson had to say. Why did Deshaun Jackson want to sit down with me? Because rather than just letting him go and letting him go someplace else, not only did Chip Kelly let him go, Chip Kelly and his minions put out stuff about Deshaun Jackson, literally trying to affect his money. You wanted to impede his ability to land someplace else and get paid. So when Deshaun Jackson had an opportunity to go against Philly, what was he talking about that week? He couldn't wait.
He was chomping at the bit. People in, we had, Fred Smoots. We had, Ryan Clark. Everybody was sitting there on the show. Sean Jackson hyped for this one. Everybody knew that. Why? Because of what happened to him.
Sure.
So my point is that why are we acting like or not treating this with the level of attention it deserves as it pertains to how badly LaShawn McCoy wants this? He doesn't just want to win. He wants to be the reason you win. He wants the ball. He wants 200 yards rushing. Yep. He wants a few touchdowns. He wants to rub it in because of Chip Kelly.
Okay, do you think he wants to win this game more than anybody in the Bills locker room?
Yes.
Boy, I don't know about that. If you're a competitor, Tyrod Taylor, Sammy Watkins, I don't know.
Everybody want to win.
Yeah.
But when it comes to going up against someone you have personal animus for, and by the way, I think we can all tell that LaShawn McCoy is lying when he says he has nothing against Chip Kelly, because he clearly does. And that's fine. Yep. But the point is that we can all tell it's personal to him. Mm-hmm. So anybody, I don't care who it is, anytime you have something, look, man, I covered Kobe. Kobe was going up against Orlando, and then after that, Boston in the NBA Finals. And he may have won it, other than his first title. I don't think Kobe Bryant ever wanted a title more than he wanted it against Boston in 2010. Why? Because he said, I got one more than Shaq. It was personal. Mm-hmm. Okay. You got, and he wasn't playing against Shaq, because Shaq wasn't on Boston. I'm just telling you.
But in five-man basketball, one superstar can control his fate better.
Of course, but I'm just saying, I'm just speaking about the psyche, what personally motivates you. No matter how great Michael Jordan was, Jordan used to have to manufacture stuff to make you an enemy, but not against the Knicks. Okay. Against the Knicks, it was real easy.
Okay.
It was real easy.
Well, what if LaShawn goes for 14 carries and 25 yards, but his team wins the game?
He's going to
sit there, happy?
He's going to look at you, and he's going to say, we won the game, I'm happy. But in the back of his mind, he's going to be like, damn, I wish I had a bigger performance.
Wouldn't he rather win and have a poor game than lose and ball out?
Winning's the priority.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Winning's the priority at the end of the day.
Yes.
But he is in a position where he could potentially have it all. Mm-hmm. They can win, and they could ruin the season for the Eagles, and he could have a big game. All of that is right before his hands right now. And that's how he's looking at it.
I personally hope they win, and he has a big game. That's all I care about.
Me too. We're all on the same page with that one. Really selling this fight. We're like, excuse me. We're like fight promoters this NFL game.
I still hate it. I'll never embrace it. I don't think it's basketball. I think it's like kind of like a circus sort of thing. Why don't we have a 5-point shot and a 7-point shot? Where does it stop? That sort of thing. But that's just me. That's just old school. But to a certain degree, you better embrace it. You're going to lose. And every time we've won a championship, 3-point shot was a big part of it because it is so powerful, and you got to be able to do it. And nobody does it better than Golden State, and you know where they're at. So it's important. Can't ignore it.
Pop, keeping it real, as always. It's a circus, so Coach Pop can't stand the 3-point shot, a.k.a. Golden State's go-to weapon. The Spurs play the Warriors on January 25th. Skip, are you surprised by these comments?
Stephen A., this for me, when I first heard it, was a what? What? He said that? To me, after I calmed back down, I decided this has to be Pop being the classic curmudgeon that he tends to be. He refuses to embrace the 3-point shot at the moment because they stink from 3. Our man, Danny Green, is in a career worst slump right now. He's shooting 29% from 3.
7 points a game. 7.
That'll change. I'm with you, Danny. You got to snap out of it.
He'll be fine.
His team last night made 7 out of 26 threes and blew a game at Toronto. I thought they should have won, but that's just me. Obviously, 3 of the previous 5 years, Pop's team has finished number 1 in 3-point shooting in the NBA, and 2 years ago finished number 1, and then finished number 1 in the whole league because it won the finals in 5 games over LeBron's team. Mm-hmm. So, again, in those years, I assume he embraced barely the 3-point shot. I don't know. I get that he's old school and he doesn't like the concept. He calls it a circus shot. But it's the shot right now, and it is the shot by which Golden State is destroying the NBA and seems to continue to be able to do that.
Well, I agree with you from the perspective that it's something that makes the game far more enjoyable, entertaining, and it is absolutely positively a skill that should be far more appreciated than it is by old school individuals, even the great Greg Popovich, who I revere, as you well know. Having said all of that, I wasn't appalled by what he said. I wasn't put off by what he said.
Surprised?
No. He's consistent. He's honest. He's no nonsense. And he's a treasure to this game. And I respect where he's coming from, because what he's saying is this. Old school guys like Popovich are about team, and you're moving the basketball, movement without the basketball, sharing the wealth, and really running plays in such a fashion that you marvel at the kind of things that a team collectively can come together and do. When you can shoot three-pointers, you can just stand out there in the minds of old school guys and jack up shots. And if you can make them, it's special. And it's diametrically opposed to their belief of what team basketball is about. Now, I don't
but
believe...
you can be a team three-point shooting team, right?
The Golden State Warriors have shown us that.
Yeah.
The San Antonio Spurs have shown us that. But by and large, most teams don't. And that's what he's leaning towards. You got to remember, Greg Popovich's team is the #1 defensive team against three-pointers in the game. They're only giving up like 30% for three-pointer. I mean, they shut it down.
Yeah.
They get up in you, you see? So that's good. But the Golden State Warriors are on another level. He can appreciate that. But when he thinks that there's anything, any component to the game of basketball that deviates from sharing the basketball, sharing the wealth, moving the basketball, et cetera, et cetera. Popovich is from the Larry Brown school of basketball. These are the kind of things you got to remember. Larry Brown, they took it to another level because they're coaches. But as a media member, I literally had the great Larry Brown after John Chaney. I had the great Larry Brown who would literally sit me in the office, you know, for Philadelphia, when he's coaching the Philadelphia 76ers, and literally show me plays that were being diagrammed and what they wanted. His assistant, Randy Ayers, who would do the same thing for me. This is what they do. The three-point shot is a part of it, but they wish that it wasn't. The old school guys I'm talking about always wish that it wasn't, because they want movement without the basketball and movement of the ball and balance. And the three-point shot takes away from that. We love it, but that's how they feel.
I don't know. I would like to see a 4-point shot, and I'm old school.
You want the circus?
It is.
Like
it needs to stop where it is.
If there were a 4-point shot, they could retire the MVP trophy because Steph Curry would win it every year.
No question.
Exactly. You don't want that.
Meanwhile, tonight, Thursday Night Football, the Cardinals host the Vikings with a chance to clinch a playoff berth with a win. The Cardinals can also clinch the NFC West with a win in a Seahawks loss. Arizona 9-point favorites. Stephen A., who you got?
I'm going with Arizona. First of all, I'm not enamored with Minnesota's passing game, but I want to take a moment to throw Carson Palmer into the MVP conversation.
Sure.
You got #1 offense in terms of points, 31.8, #1 passing attack with 490, #1 in passing, yards and 419, third in the passing attack with 299. Carson Palmer has been absolutely phenomenal as the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. You know, I'm picking Arizona to win tonight.
Okay.
So I'm doing about 31-20.
Okay. I got 32-14 because I feel like Minnesota has fallen back to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
And if it's Carson Palmer, Teddy Bridgewater, I think I'll go Carson Palmer to outscore Teddy Bridgewater.
Absolutely.
AP going to be able to run? We'll see.
Well, you know, they might get a 7 points. They might get 7 points in garbage time. 13 points the rest of the way.
All right. Great show today, guys. We covered a lot of base there. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.
Yep.
Appreciate you listening to us as always, and of course you can watch us weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern and catch the rear at 1 p.m. Eastern. First Take on ESPN2.
The College Football Playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma. Alabama, Michigan State.
If you're not ready for the playoff, you might not have a pulse.
Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.